Hi, this is Maggie from Design Code Debug Repeat. Welcome to the channel. You've written a Python program with functions, and when you run it, you get an unbound local error, something like cannot access local variable I where it is not associated with a value. But you can clearly see the variable is given a value before that code executes. What's going on? I think this is one of the weirdest, most confusing Python errors, but it actually makes a lot of sense once you understand what's causing it. In this video, I'll explain exactly what it means and how to fix it fast. I have here a really simple example of the problem. This script is called globalwoes.py. At the top, I've annotated a variable called I and assigned it the value 10. Below that, I have a function definition, def doublet, open close paren, so no parameters, returns none, colon, and then indented print I and I equals I times 2. Then below that, unindented, I'm invoking doublet and then printing I again. When I try to run this program, I get an error. Unbound local error cannot access local variable I where it is not associated with a value. And that error is on line 4, the line on which I'm printing I. And we can all see I getting a value on line 1, can't we? Now, I don't think this is a good program, and we'll talk about why. But the reason this error surprised me when I learned Python is this program would not throw an error in some other languages. Here's an equivalent C program, and it prints first 10 and then 20. Back to the Python program, even weirder in my opinion, is when we comment out line 5, I equals I times 2. I'll comment that out and run it, but Maggie, the error is before that line. And it prints 10 and 10. What is going on? The key is the word local. The error is cannot access local variable I where it is not associated with a value. You might recognize that word local as having a counterpart called global, both referring to scope. Scope rules define which names, variable names or function names for example, are available in various blocks of code. Names are defined, and then if they're in scope, they can be used. Variable names are defined when they're on the left side of an assignment statement, as I is defined on line 1. Function names are defined when they follow the keyword def, as doublet is defined on line 3. There are 2 scopes in this tiny script. There's the global scope, also called main scope in Python, and that's the whole script scope. I'm going to refer to that as global scope because it's a more general term. The names I and doublet are defined in the global scope, meaning they're available to the global code, lines 1, 7, and 8. There's also a local scope in this program. Local scope refers to what names are available inside a function. Each function has its own local scope. I joke in my Intro Java course available on this channel that you can think of a function like Vegas. What is defined in a function stays in a function. There are scope rules for figuring out what value will be associated with a name. Python first looks inside the local scope for a name being defined, and if it finds it, it uses that name. If it doesn't see the name being defined in the local scope, it looks in the enclosing scope. The enclosing scope for this function is the script in which it's defined, the global scope. This rule is sometimes referred to as LEGB, local, enclosing, global, and built-in. That's how Python decides where to look for a variable. The rule is the same for C, actually. In the C version of this program, C looks inside the function doublet. It doesn't see a variable I being defined there, and so it looks in the enclosing scope, sees I, and uses that I. Python does the same thing. Python looks inside the function doublet to see if I is being defined, and it finds it. Because in Python, a variable is defined when it's on the left side of an assignment statement. So, to Python, we're defining a local variable I on line 5. Therefore, we can't print it on line 4 because it is a local variable, but it hasn't been defined yet. When we comment out line 5, there is no longer a local variable I, so Python finds the name defined in the global scope and uses that name. Now, it's a poor program, as I mentioned before. As you become comfortable with writing functions that take parameters and return values, and as you become comfortable with scope rules, you will easily be able to avoid writing weak code and this specific problem. I'm going to show you 2 fixes, a good one and a poor one. Why do we write functions? We write them so we can break a program into smaller pieces, with each function solving its own small piece. A function should ideally have one purpose. It should have a parameter list, which is all of the external data it needs to fulfill its purpose, and it should return the result of its work. Why? Because we want the function to be as independent of the rest of the program as possible, and we want to be able to see, by looking at the function's header, exactly what data it uses to do its job and exactly what it produces. This makes it easier to write large-scale programs. If I have a function that's using a global variable, then first I can't pull that function out of the program and use it somewhere else, because it's dependent on the global scope. Second, now it isn't clear from reading the function header what data it's using to fulfill its purpose. And third, now I can't trust that data. Who knows in a large-scale program what other functions are also modifying that data and what value it's going to have at any point during program execution. This version of the program, called globalwoesfix.py, is a proper solution to this problem. When I run it, I get 10 and 20, just like the C program. I've broken it into two functions, doublet and main. The content that was in the global scope before is all in main. Let's focus on doublet. It takes one parameter, I, the variable that it's going to print and double, and it returns one value, the double of I. This function has a parameter list that includes the data it needs to fulfill its function, and it returns the result of its work. Now, I want to show you a poor fix. And I'm showing you this because you'll see it on the internet, and you might even be using a development environment that suggests this fix. If I put global I inside doublet, now the problem is solved. And this is equivalent to the C program. We're telling Python that the line I equals I times 2 is not defining a variable I, that all references to I are referencing the globally defined I. This works, but it still leaves us with a function that is modifying a global variable, and that is an undesirable thing. I hope this helped you solve your unbound local error. If this helped, check out my Fix It Fast series on Python errors. There's one on name error, one on file not found error, one on indentation errors, and more on the way. If you're still stuck, drop a comment below, and I'll help you debug. As always, have fun and keep coding.